Hello all, I hope everyone is well. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am back with a very interesting sequel video. Let's see what the problem says and we'll try to solve it. So today's problem is kind of a tricky problem that I think, so I thought of sharing with you guys. Let's see what the problem says first. So today we have been given a table called employee and it has three columns: employee ID, employee date and employee spent. It's basically on like on which date, on a particular date, how many if you see that employee A1 on the 1st of April, he had spent something. So it is basically like on which date, which employee spent what amount. Okay, so you can think of like that. Basically, in the 1st of April, so in this day, some employees spent something. So if you see A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6. So there are six employees who have spent on 1st of April. If you see A1, A2, A3, and A2, A8, so these people, these employees spent some amount on 2nd of April, right? So this, right? And again, for A2, A3, A6, they have spent something on 3rd of April, and A3 had spent something. So what is our intention to do it here? So basically, like we need to find out for each date how many employees spent. Okay, so how many employees spent something? Okay, but there is a tweak. What is the trick? So you need to find the employees count for each day who were there in the initial starting date. So what does it mean? It means, let's say for A1 to A6, like A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, there are six people. So this is the initial date, like 1st of April, which is the initial date. So there were six persons or six people or six employees who spent somewhere on 1st of April. Okay. And on this But in the 2nd of April, if you see, A1 spent somewhere on 2nd of April, right? Spent on something, right? So A1 spent, A2 spent, A3 also spent. So A1, A2, A3 also spent in the initial date, right? So A1 spent some 456 rupees on 2nd of April, but A1 spent in the initial date, right? A2 also did the same. A3 also did the same, but A8 didn't spend anything in their initial date. So A3 didn't spend anything in his initial date, right? A8 basically. So that will not be there in the count. So we need to take only those employees who spent somewhere on the initial date, right? In the initial date, they spent something. So that is the thing. So 8 will not be included. So how many people for 2nd of April? There are three employees who spent some rupees or spent something on 2nd of April. Okay. So there are three people for 3rd of April. There were three people. A6 will be included. Why A6 will be included? Because A6 spent something on in the initial date, right? A6 spent somewhere in the initial date. So A6 will be there. So there are three employees, right? In on 3rd of April. And A3 also spent something on 4th of April. Okay. So I think this is clear, right? So you need to find out the employees count for each day who were there in the initial starting date. Okay. So now let's see how we are going to solve it. So this is our data, right? This is our data. Now, how we are going to solve it? First of all, what we are going to do is we will create a row number. Okay. So row number. Why I'm creating a row number? I'll come to that point. Row number over partition by employee ID, order by employee date, and give this name as RN. Okay, from employee table, and take order by employee date, comma MP ID. Let's see what is coming. Let's see. So if I run this, so if you see, sorry, I didn't take the star. Sorry. Right. So if I run this, so if you see for on 1st of April, we are getting the row number as 1 because partition by employee ID and order by employee date. right? So we are getting all 1. But if you see, in the 2nd of April, if you see this A1, the count will be 2, right? In that scenario, count will be 2, right? Partition by employee ID, right? If you see A2 here, the count will be 2 for the 2nd of April. But A8, the count will be 1 because A8 didn't spend anything in the initial date. So the count is 1. Correct? Now, now, so we got that, right? So this is something we have created. Now, what we need to create is basically you need to just create the minimum of employee date. So what is the initial date? Initial date is the minimum of the EMP date. So I'm just writing minimum of the EMP date as, and I'm just creating over as minimum of EMP date. Why I have created it? So this date is basically will be associated with each and every row in the table, right? So if I run this, so if you see, so this is the minimum date, right? This is the minimum date. Okay. Now I'm putting it into a city. I'm putting it into a city, right? I'm putting it into a city. Now I'm just running the same query from city, so I'll get the same result, right? Select star from city, right? So I'll get the same record. Oh, so we don't need that. So I'll just put it here, right? So if I run this, we'll be getting the same thing. Now, if you think, if you think this A8, this row, right? This row is not needed because this A8 is not present in the initial date, but 8 started it from the 2nd date. He was not present in the initial date, right? He was not present in the initial date. So for that, what I'm gonna do is we will have to take this row, right? We need to take it out. So we need to take it out, this row. So you need to take this row out from the table. So what I'm gonna do is, so how are you gonna do that? It's pretty simple. Where just select the employee ID where, okay, where you can write down employee date, right? I'm just writing employee dates. The condition would be employee date greater than mean employee date and RN has to be equals to 1. Just see what I have written. So I've written, just take that employee ID. So we need to take this employee ID, right? We need to take this out, right? We need to take this row out. So for that, employee date must be greater than minimum employee date. That has to be correct, right? Because he had started from the very next day. Let's say this guy started from 3rd of April. So obviously this employee date will be greater than minimum employee date and the RN will be equals to 1. Correct? So if I run this now, we will be getting that employee ID, right? I'm not running it. Okay. So the next step would be, I will, what I'm gonna do is select something from city. Let me write it, I'll just explain. So I'll just make a left join with this, make this as a subquery as a, okay, on a dot employee ID, okay, a dot, employee ID equals to b dot employee ID. And I'll be taking a dot emp ID, or let's say emp date first, comma a dot emp ID, comma b dot emp ID. Make this as a b. Okay. What I'm gonna what I have done here. So if you see from this result, I'll be getting A8. Let me run this for you, so you'll be getting it right. Let me run this. Let me run this. So if I run this, so if you see, if I run this, I'll be getting A8, that row, right? So if I delete this, what I'm saying here now, so take city and make a left join with this table. So this table had this data, right? This table had this data, and this is only having A8. So what I'm joining is a dot employee ID to b dot employee ID, and I'm saying a dot what I'm taking a dot employee date, a dot employee ID, and b dot employee ID. So think about that. A8 will be matched, right? A8 will be matched, but none. well, none of the other rows will be matched basically. So for that b dot employee ID will be null, right, for other rows, but for this A8 we'll be getting a record. So if I run this, you will see these are not matching because 8 is only there in this table, right, in this subqueries. So 8 is only there. So 8 is coming. Other than that, all the other values will be null in b dot employee ID, right? So now the now task is pretty simple. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just putting where b dot empid is null. So because we don't need this record, right? We just need is null. So we are only concerned about the null ones, right? Now we're going to change something. So I'm just deleting this because we don't need that because we have already put it here. So now I'm going to do is count of distinct distinct.employee ID. So if I remove this row, right? If I remove this row, so I will only take count of distinct a.employee ID. But if you see, for why I have taken distinct, because 0, 2, we have two records for A2. We only need only one because A2 can spend more than you know two places. I mean, you can spend like somewhere else, like on 2nd of April. He had spent somewhere, he had spent in a shop, again he had spent in another shop. So there can be two entries. So that's why I have taken count of distinct a.employee ID. And I'll just write, I'll just write group by a dot employee date, right? A dot employee date, right? So if I run this now, I'll be getting the exact, output what I had shown you earlier, right? So I'm just giving a name as employee count. Okay. So now if I run this, just make some alignment just to see you properly, just to show you here. Okay. So I'll be getting the employee count. So in the 1st of April, we had 6 employees. If you see, we had 6 employees, right? In the 2nd of April, there are 3 employees because 8 was not present in the initial date. So 8 will be excluded. Now the 3rd of April, there are 3 people. How? Because A2, A3, A6 both spent, all of them spent, you know, in on the initial date, right? All of them spent something in the initial date. And 4th of April, there is only one record, A3, who actually spent something on the 1st of April, right? On the in the initial date, right? So we are getting the exact same, record or exact same output that I had shown you earlier. I hope this is clear. I hope the solution is pretty simple. But if you have any better solution, just let me know. I'll give the data to the description box for you to try. Okay. And if you like the video, then please share with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe my channel. Follow me on Instagram as well as in LinkedIn and YouTube, everywhere. Okay. If you, okay, then we will come back in another session. Till then, thank you. Goodbye.